Hi, my name is Mr. Ablett and I'm going to be your new band teacher for this year. This video is all about the alto saxophone. We're going to talk about how to put it together, how to hold it, how to play the first couple of notes, some really important do's and don'ts. And this is really going to help a lot going through the first month or so of band. It's just going to make things run so much more smoothly, and you're going to learn a lot through this video. So feel free to watch the video more than once because there's a lot of information that I'm going to throw your way. And I'm just going to turn down Mr. Eric Marienthal here just for a moment. He's such a wonderful player. I love listening to him play the saxophone. And let's get started right away. If you don't have your instrument in front of you, push pause, run and grab it, and let's do all of these things together so you can experience it like in real time, okay? So I've got my alto saxophone case here, and you want to make sure that you're going to be opening up the case the correct way. So don't open the case with the lid on the bottom, then your saxophone goes crash on the floor. That's a really bad idea. We always want to make sure we're looking after the instrument as best we can. And so this is what it should look like, or pretty close to that, okay? So we're going to talk about the different parts of the saxophone now. Why don't we start off with the neck strap? Okay, I'd like you to take the neck strap out of the case and put it around your neck. We're going to use that right away, okay? And let's talk about just the anatomy of the instrument. So this is the mouthpiece with the mouthpiece cap on. This mouthpiece cap is an important tool. Protects the reed when we're not playing the instrument. So you want to have that handy and just make sure that you're really carefully putting it on and off the instrument, or on and off the mouthpiece when the reed is on there. Here's your mouthpiece. And this part of the mouthpiece is called the ligature. And you can see it's narrower at the top than it is at the bottom. So it fits on the mouthpiece just like that, and it slides down with the screws on the flat part of the mouthpiece that faces the bottom when it's in your mouth. Okay, the screws should be on the bottom, not like that. Okay, there are some ligatures that are designed to go that way. That's fine. But the student ligature that comes with your saxophone is designed to have the screws on the bottom, unless you've purchased a nicer ligature than comes with the rental. Okay? Now, this is the neck of the saxophone, and this cork portion is where the mouthpiece slides on. Okay? We'll do that in just a moment. And this is the body of the saxophone. Now, quite often, the saxophone will come with a black stopper in the end here. Take out that black stopper right now. What that does is that it protects this little key from getting bent, okay? Don't lose that. We're going to use that every time we put the instrument away. All right, now on the back of the saxophone, notice how I hold it up by the bell here and by the bottom of the saxophone. It's got a little ring on the back, and that's, you guessed it, for the neck strap. Now, my neck strap is just an open hook. Other neck straps will have a little snap to actually close around the ring. Either way is fine, okay? So let's start off with the saxophone around our neck, nice and secure. We always keep a hand on it anyways. We don't just let it dangle and flop around. That's a bad idea. Then it's gonna get all damaged. Now, I'm gonna take the neck of the saxophone and I'm gonna put it in the body of the sax. Now, really important that we're handling the neck of the saxophone by the edges, never grabbing it like this, because you can bend this key on the top. Again, we're looking after the equipment, right? So we hold it by the side, on either side, and it should just slide in there. No lubrication is required. And there are two screws on the top of the saxophone. There's this one right here, which will tighten the neck down so that the neck doesn't flop around on you. If I loosen it off like this, you'll see you can turn the neck in different directions. So we're gonna just tighten that down so it's nice and firm. Doesn't have to be super tight. There's actually another screw on the side here, and that's for holding a little tiny music stand called a lyre. And we're not gonna be doing that, that's for marching band. Okay, so we've got our saxophone just about all together. Now, you'll notice inside of your case, it comes with this thing. It looks like chapstick. Not chapstick, it's cork grease. It's a lubrication that goes on the neck cork of your saxophone. Now, you're gonna wanna keep this thing nice and well lubricated, okay? If it turns really like light brown or tan color, if the cork turns that color, then it means the cork is dried out, and there's a good chance that it's going to crack and fall off of your saxophone. If that happens, let me know. Okay, I'll inspect it and tell you whether it needs to go into the shop or not. But quite often these repairs need to be handled by a technician that really knows what they're doing. Forgot to advance the slide. There we go. So we're learning how to put the instrument together and all the different parts of the saxophone. Okay, now let me see if I can open up one of my other reeds here. Sometimes reeds come just in a plastic case, or sometimes they're sealed in a foil pouch like this one is. So I'm going to open this one up so you can see what it looks like right from the very beginning. Okay, and it comes in this little plastic holder. Okay, now these plastic holders are great. They really protect the reed because the tip of the reed is very, very delicate. Okay, and we want to make sure that we're always keeping our reeds inside a plastic case. But I've got one better than this. I have got one of these. Okay, now this is a reed protector. As you can see, it holds 2 reeds on one side and 2 reeds on the other. And what that lets me do is that I can have several reeds on the go at any given time while I'm playing in band. Okay, one day I'll play on this reed, next day I'll play on this reed. Okay, and they can be all from the same box. That's okay. They don't have to be like a different variety of reeds. I've got a bunch of different reeds here that I will use for demonstration purposes. So what I'm going to do is that I will play on this reed today, and then when I'm done, I don't leave it on the mouthpiece. That's a no-no. You want to take it off the mouthpiece and put it in the reed protector, because when wood gets wet, it warps. It gets all wavy, especially the very tip of the reed. And we don't want the tip of the reed getting warped, because then the sound gets all wonky, right? So we want it to dry nice and flat, and that's what this does. So you can use those other plastic ones if you want to. They're okay. Some of them look like this. I've got a clear one, okay? And the reed slides in there, or the red one I showed you before. And like I said, they're fine. But if you want to spend $5 on something where you can rotate your reeds, and I normally put a number on these reeds, and I go, oh, I'm playing on number 1 this time, number 2 next time, and I rotate through. That way my reeds will stick around for a long time, and I can play them for several months at a time before they're worn out. Okay, so take the reed and put it in your mouth. And we want to make sure that it's nice and wet. I know it's a little gross. I'm going to do both sides as well. Okay, now normally you would keep it in your mouth while you're putting your instrument together, so it really soaks up that moisture, because a dry reed is going to squawk and squeal and make all sorts of horrible sounds, but a wet reed is going to vibrate properly. Okay, so mine's probably not as wet as I want it to get it, but we're going to move along anyways. So I've taken the mouthpiece cap I've got here, so I'll just put it on my music stand. And I'm going to put the reed inside the mouthpiece now. So I hold the mouthpiece straight up with the ligature on the bottom, and I just kind of scoot it up a little bit with my thumb. And I put the reed in with the bark face down. Here's the bark, and there's the tip. So the bark goes on the face of the mouthpiece like that. Okay. And then I slide the ligature down. Now, the ligature needs to be centered, okay? It also needs to be far enough down the mouthpiece so it doesn't choke the reed. Okay, so what does that look like? Let me get a little closer to the camera here so you can see what I'm talking about. If I can move my chair. Okay, here we go. Now, if my ligature is up like this, only the top portion of my reed is going to be doing the vibrating, just that much. But if my ligature is down there, then this much of the reed is going to do the vibrating. It's going to work much better for me, okay? So make sure your ligature is far enough down on the mouthpiece. It should not sit above the ridge right there of the mouthpiece, okay? That's too high. That is acceptable, all right? You want to make sure the ligature is nice and centered on the bottom. You don't want it off to one side like that. That's weird. It's not going to work properly. Okay. Once you get that figured out, now we're going to talk about the placement of the reed underneath. So I'm going to loosen off my ligature a little bit just by turning the screws a little bit. And you see how you can see the reed over the top of the mouthpiece? Well, that's sticking up a little bit too much. We want it to be just touching the tip of the mouthpiece. Not too short, not too long, just like that. Okay? So it shouldn't stick up really tall. You could just barely see a sliver of the reed over top of the edge of the mouthpiece. It can't be off to the side like that. That's not going to work. You see how crooked that is? We want it nice and centered. So be a little picky with it, okay? Now I'm going to pull down on the screws of the ligature, and then I'm going to make them nice and snug. To the top one and the bottom one, go back and forth a couple times, and just snug them down. You don't have to really reef on it, but it should be pretty snug, okay? Now, onto the saxophone it goes. And it just slides onto that cork grease, or onto the neck cork, because I have cork grease on there. Again, if you're having to grab the saxophone and go, that probably means you don't have enough cork grease on there. Okay, so put a little cork grease on there before you put the mouthpiece on and when you put it away. And then that cork grease is going to soak into the cork and really do what it's intended to do. Okay. So that's how you put your saxophone together. You should have about, the width of your pinky amount of cork showing there, okay? You don't want to have too much. You don't want to have it like dangling on the end of the cork like that. That's way too much. Your saxophone's going to sound lower than everybody else's. It's going to sound funny. And you don't want to push it on too far or else, or else that's going to sound funny too. Okay, so about the width of your pinky worth of cork left showing. Okay, so that's how you assemble your mouthpiece. Hand position. Okay, here we go. So right hand, please, goes on the bottom. Left hand goes on the top. Now your hand position is going to make a big difference as to how your instrument functions while you're playing it. So take your right thumb, and you see how there's a black hook on the back of my saxophone? Just the tip of my thumb goes right in there, just like that. Now there's a black dot where my left thumb goes. And then from the bottom to the top, there is 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, you skip that little guy there, 1. And your left index finger has a key on the top and a key on the bottom of it that we don't play. Well, we'll play them, but okay. You have access to those keys, but our normal hand position, your index finger on your left hand has a key above and a key below, okay? Now, your left pinky has access to all these keys, and your right pinky has access to those keys on the bottom. Okay, now, if our hand position is a little bit out, if we're a little bit lazy with it, we might maybe collapse this hand a little bit, and then all of a sudden we're playing these keys on the side, okay? We don't want to play the side keys unintentionally. We want to play those when we want to play those notes, right? So make sure that we have a nice curve to our right hand so that we're not unintentionally pressing the side keys there, and a nice curve to our left hand. So just the pad of our thumb goes on the black dot on the back, and there's a key there which we're going to be playing later on. That's called the register or the octave key. And then our hand goes 3, 2, 1. Remember, there's a key on either side of your index finger, and then there's these palm keys here on the left hand, okay? And we want to make sure that we're not unintentionally playing those keys. Okay, so that's where your hands go. Let's talk about the neck strap just for a minute. Sometimes I find that students have the neck strap too long. Okay, so my neck strap actually doesn't go any longer than that. So they have the saxophone dangling on the neck strap like this. And then when they try and play the saxophone, they have to go like this to get to it, right? And then they end up playing like this with all this tension in their sound. They can't figure out, why do I sound so tense? Well, it's because, look at the way you're sitting. So what we want to do is that we want to have the saxophone set up in such a way that when it's hanging on the neck strap and the full weight of the saxophone is on the neck strap, it just slides right into our mouth where we're supposed to be playing. Okay? That's all you have to do. If you are letting the saxophone dangle on the neck strap and you put it towards your mouth and it jabs you in the neck, then your neck strap is too long. Okay? And all you have to do is that you grab the buckle and pull on the buckle, and it'll get shorter and shorter. Okay? Just like that. Always make sure you put your neck strap back in the case when you're finished playing. Quite often I'll be walking around, I'll go to my next school and have the neck strap around my neck, and I'll realize, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to take my neck strap off. And that would be disastrous if I tried to play my saxophone that didn't have a neck strap with me. Okay? Always make sure you've got your neck strap in your case. Just trying to get rid of some of the wrinkles in the neck strap. Okay, I'll do that later. So let's move right along, shall we? Embouchure. Okay, embouchure is a fancy word which just means the way we form the muscles in our mouth to play on the instrument. So let's take the mouthpiece off of the saxophone. And what we want to do is to put about a third of the mouthpiece in our mouth, like that. And you want to put your teeth on the top of the mouthpiece. And underneath, you want to cushion the reed with your bottom lip. Now, not your entire lip. You don't have to and put your whole lip inside your mouth. Just this shiny pink skin on the inside of your lip. Just a tiny little pad to cover your bottom teeth. Because if your bottom teeth touch your reed, you'll know it. It's like getting shocked with electricity. It sounds terrible. Okay? So put, somewhere between a third and a half. We'll fiddle with it, and you're going to find exactly how much reed to put in your mouth in just a minute. But put, a third to a half of the mouthpiece in your mouth. Top teeth go on the top of the mouthpiece. Bottom teeth are covered with a little layer of your bottom lip. And crow on your mouthpiece. And it should sound a little bit like, that doesn't sound very nice. And that's okay. That's the way the saxophone is supposed to sound. All right? So if you can make that sound in your mouthpiece, hey, you're doing a good job. All right? We're not going to spend half an hour practicing like that, thank goodness. Now we're going to put our mouthpiece back on our saxophone. And again, top teeth on the top of the mouthpiece. We want to turn the mouthpiece so that we're not having to turn our head like this and do something weird to accommodate the instrument. The instrument accommodates us so that we can be relaxed and we can play straight on. So it's pretty easy to make a sound on a saxophone for most people. If you're not making a sound yet, that's okay. Do the best you can. If you can make that squealing sound or the crowing sound on the mouthpiece, there's your first place to start. And then put it on the instrument. Again, review what it's all about, putting your embouchure together. Top teeth on the top of the mouthpiece. Bottom teeth are covered by just a little tiny layer of skin from your bottom lip. And let's experiment with how much mouthpiece to put inside your mouth. Okay, if I put too little mouthpiece in my mouth, it sounds like this. It sounds unfocused, kind of sandy and weak. It doesn't sound right. Now, if I put too much mouthpiece in my mouth, it sounds like a 4,000-pound Canada goose. And while that might be patriotic, that's not a sound that we want to utilize in band, right? So you want to find that sweet spot where it sounds pretty on the saxophone. Try finding something right in the middle. Not enough. Too much. we find this sweet spot in the middle. And that's the sound we always want to make in band. You always want to make the most beautiful sound that you possibly can. Or else, why would anybody want to listen to you if you sound bad? Right? We always want to try and sound good. So we're going to learn 3 notes today. Normally in the book, we don't learn 3 notes in one lesson. That's a lot. But in today's video, why not? Let's really learn as much as we can so that when we show up to band, we can all play some music together. So we're going to learn G, A, and B. So the first note is called G, and it looks like that. It's the note that rests on the second, it's intersected by the second line from the bottom in the treble clef. Okay? And this is the fingering. So in the left hand, you're going to have 3, 2, 1. You're going to press that down. So you don't need to push this key on the back just yet. Okay? You need to push down 3, 2, and 1. That's the note we just played. So how about I play the note, and then you echo after me. First me, then you. Your turn. Da, da, da. Did you make a beautiful sound? That's always the goal, don't forget. Okay, let's go on to the next note. Super easy. You might remember this from like playing recorder. So we go from G to A. Simple. You're just going to lift that one finger. Sounds like this. First me, then you. All right, good job. And the third note, if you remember, it's called B. And it's just the first finger. So it's G, A, B. Here's a B. All right, I hope you're doing well so far. And by the way, if you're ever struggling with something in band, you don't have to. You don't have to struggle with it forever. Come and talk to me. I'm the nicest guy in the world, and I'll help you as best I can with any problem that you're having in band. I don't want you to sit there and think, oh, band is stupid because I can't do what Mr. Ablett is telling me. It takes a whole lifetime of learning these instruments. I'm just a beginner on this instrument, just like you guys. In fact, I just went out and bought this saxophone so that I could play along with you. Okay, and I've learned a few things about saxophone over the years, and I've played with a lot of professional saxophone players and studied the instrument myself. So I know that it takes a lot of personal practice to get really good at the saxophone. And we're going to do that together. Okay? I'm a beginner on all the instruments in the band. I play everything. Okay, so I know what it's like. I know how it feels to be a beginner on the saxophone. So if you're struggling in silence, speak up. Come and talk to me, and I will help you. Okay? Band is going to be fun, and we're going to work together, and we're going to do it. Okay, let's talk about... You heard me make a very clear, or at least I tried to, make a very clear sound every time I would play a note. And that's a technique that we call tonguing. So what I do... Let me take the mouthpiece off and I'll show you. Is that when the mouthpiece is in my mouth, my tongue comes up and touches right about here. Okay, right in the middle. And I say, tuh, tuh, tuh. And I can feel the reed in my mouth. I can feel it with the tip of my tongue. Do that right now. You don't have to make a sound. But put the reed in your mouth and go. Feel the reed with the tip of your tongue. Can you feel it? Just like you're feeling something with your finger. Mm-hmm, 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 mm, mm-hmm, mm. Okay? And that's how you start your notes. So if you were to crow on the reed, on the mouthpiece, oops. There, it took me a minute. That's kind of hard for me to do. I guess I got to practice that. That's how you start the note. Do you notice how I check the rotation of the mouthpiece every time I play? Every time I take the mouthpiece off and put it back on? I can turn it any way that I want. Find the spot which feels most comfortable. Okay, so let's start on a G, and we're going to practice tonguing our notes. First me, then you. Ready? You. Let's move to the A. Ta, ta, ta. So every note gets the touch of the tip of the tongue on the reed, okay? And that's how we tongue our notes in band. Sometimes if we want it to sound nice and smooth, we just change the note, but we don't use our tongue. That's called slurring, when we slur from one note to the next. Let's go G, A, B, B, A, G, okay? And we're going to tongue the first note, and then we're going to slur as we go up, which just means we're going to move our fingers and not tongue the rest of the notes. Tongue the first one, but not the rest. Make sense? Here we go. G, A, B. B, A, G. Isn't that pretty? I love playing the saxophone. It's so great. So now, on your very first day, you're going to play a full song on the saxophone, Mary Had a Little Lamb. So Mary Had a Little Lamb is so simple. It goes B, A, G, A, B, B, B. Okay? And you can practice either tonguing the notes or slurring the notes. It's up to you. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. How'd you do? Were you able to play it with me? If you weren't able to play all the notes, or you had a big crazy squeak in the middle, it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes when they try playing an instrument for the first time. Everybody. There isn't one person in the history of the world that has picked up a musical instrument and never made a mistake. We all do. Okay? And I'm going to show you how to deal with those mistakes and how to improve as we go. Okay? That's my job. Don't you worry about it. I'll show you how. Okay. Now, how to put the instrument away when we're done playing with it. Let me show you something. Sometimes there's a reason to put the instrument down in the middle of class. Maybe we'll have a fire drill. Maybe you need to use the washroom or something like that. So it's really important that we know how to put the instrument down so it doesn't get damaged. For me, I always have my case right next to me. Right now I've got my case open. It's on a chair right next to me, but it could be on the floor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close the lid, okay? And then I'm just going to put my mouthpiece cap on. Here it is. So I protect my reed, because if my reed is chipped or split, it's not going to play, okay? And then I'll just put my instrument down just like that. Now, I never put it on my chair because then it can fall. I just put it on the ground. That way it can't fall over. And that's the main reason why an instrument gets damaged, is that it gets knocked over by somebody. Okay? I don't want my reed or my mouthpiece touching the ground. I don't want to put a dirty mouthpiece in my mouth. That's not right. So I'll put it on top of my case, or I'll just turn the neck of the mouthpiece like that so that my mouthpiece isn't going to be in contact with the ground. Okay? So let's say band class is over. Okay, and I say, okay, everybody can pack up now. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the reed off of my mouthpiece. Oh, loosen that off a little bit more. Making sure that my ligature doesn't fall on the ground, because if it falls on the ground and somebody steps on it, need a new ligature. There's no coming back from that. So I'm going to put my reed away in my reed case so it dries nice and flat and it plays beautifully next time I want to play. I put my neck strap away so I can always remember that I have a neck strap with me. The next part is that I take the mouthpiece off. You can put some cork grease on your neck cork if you need to at this time. Again, that's going to soak into the cork and that's going to look after your neck cork a lot. So I'm going to loosen off that tension screw. I'm going to put my saxophone neck away. And I'm going to look after the pads on my saxophone right now. I've got a swab here, and every saxophone is going to come with a swab. And basically, it's just got a little weight on one end, a string, and a piece of felt. Okay? And what we're going to do, after we've been playing for a little while, sometimes there's some water that accumulates inside the saxophone. That's normal. It's supposed to be that way. Okay, so I drop the weighted end inside the top of the saxophone, and then it comes out the bell. And all I do is that I pull it gently through the instrument. If it ever gets stuck inside the instrument, please let me know, okay? And I will do my best to help you out with that. That doesn't happen very often these days, but sometimes you never know. Things can happen, all right? So I'm going to do it a couple of times. We just don't want to get our saxophones wet ever, okay? We want to make sure that we keep our saxophones as dry as possible. So I'm going to pull that through the top of the saxophone, and it's going to gather all the moisture away from the pads that open and close on our saxophone. See, here it comes, and it just gathers all the moisture away. Okay, and if you're wondering about what are the pads, well, you can see them here. There's the underside of one of the pads. Okay, and the pads open and close over the tone holes, and that's what makes the notes on our saxophone. Don't forget our little black stopper, which protects the register key on the back. That goes on there. And then we put our saxophone in the case, and then latch the case. I've seen it so many times where somebody will put their saxophone in the case, close the lid, and then pick it up. The saxophone goes bang on the floor. Oh, off we go to the repair shop. Okay, so I hope you've learned something new about the saxophone today, how to play the first couple of notes. Boy band is going to be a lot of fun when we're able to play some songs out of the book, and we're going to start working on our first concert. It's going to be so exciting. I can't wait to hear you. So thanks for watching the video, and happy practicing.